The Root Cellars by Theodore Refuge. Nothing would sleep in that cellar, dank as a ditch. Bulbs broke out of boxes, hunting for chinks in the dark. Shoots dangled and drooped, lolling obscenely from mildewed crates, hung down long yellow necks like tropical snakes. What a congress of stinks! Roots ripe as old bait, pulpy stems, rank, silo-rich, leaf mold, manure, lime, piled against slippery planks. Nothing would give up life. Even the dirt kept breathing a small breath. Ziigwung, Ziigwung, That's Happy Spring Equinox in Anishinaabe. We just passed the first day of Ziigwung, the spring equinox, bringing longer days and shorter nights, and for those of us who watch the stars, Orion marching off into the sunset. Today, we celebrate that springtime. We celebrate the return of life. In my family, we do so celebrating Ziigwung with colored eggs, colored with natural dyes, and an egg hunt, and searching for baskets of gifts, much in traditional ways, and especially looking for signs of the returning life after the winter, after baboon. And we did have a real baboon this year, didn't we? I mean, some winters, there's not enough snow to build a snow fort. The kids always like to build a snow fort. But this year, we could build a snow fort, and with the really cold temperatures, get it all iced over and solid. This snow fort was big enough for Rowan to stand up in the middle of. It even had a pantry and electric lights. Winter's fun. Winter's fun here in Michigan, and I enjoy it a lot. And with our modern conveniences and plentiful food, for us today, winter is fun, and if there's anything wrong with it at all, it's at most an inconvenience. But that's not how it always was. For our ancestors, for hundreds, thousands of years going back, whether they're Native American or not, winters were often deadly hardships. And so, with that, it's not a surprise that culture after culture celebrates the spring equinox as a special day to celebrate the returning warmth. And for a lot of them, and for me, it celebrates something more. It celebrates a reminder that often after a hardship, often we get a return to life. A return to life that can be more than just being free of the hardship itself. In fact, if we look back at our history with deep time eyes, this can become even more clear. Looking way back into our ancestry, we realize that natural selection doesn't work without some hardship. When you have a beneficial mutation, the only way that's going to become prevalent in the next generation is if the people or organisms who have that beneficial mutation have more kids. If things aren't hard, then it's okay to, no one has any problems. All the organisms can have kids. And when that's the case, the good mutations aren't selected for. They don't spread. They might even be lost. If we look back and look at any good thing that we have and think about it in those terms, then we start to see some of the benefits that can come out of hardship. For instance, one example. We like a good meal. I like a good meal. And our ancestors, time and again, faced starvation. Terrible, grinding starvation. That, if they didn't like a good meal, if they didn't feel that burning of hunger, if they didn't have the mutations that gave them those things, gave them the ability to smell food a little ways off, then those wouldn't have been selected for. We wouldn't have them. And every day that we can enjoy a meal, come into a kitchen and smell good food, we're reaping the benefits of those hardships ages and ages ago. And so it goes for every good aspect of our bodies. If there weren't times, many times, when a lot of our ancestors were chased by predators, where we needed to look around and see things, eyes wouldn't have evolved. If there weren't times when we desperately needed to run, either to escape danger, find food, protect our young, or something else, legs wouldn't have evolved. With these challenges, one after another, have built us up. And without them, we'd still be pond scum. Not that there's anything wrong with pond scum. Pond scum's great. But I look at the wonderful majesty of the web of life of which we're a part, and it's so much more than pond scum from which it used to be. A lot of those hardships were hard enough to be famous. Let's look at one. How many people know what killed off the dinosaurs that aren't birds? Anybody know? Just shout it out.
Asteroid.
Asteroid, right, thank you. And not just some piddly pebble, but this was a 6-mile wide mountain of rock. To put that in perspective, the biggest nuclear explosion that we humans have made was made by the Soviet Union. It was the Tsar bomb. The Tsar bomb was 50 megatons. That's equal to 3,000 of the Hiroshima bombs put together. That's the Tsar bomb. And if I had 1 million of those and blasted them off at once, it would only be a fraction of that asteroid explosion. We humans are a threat to this planet, but we're nothing compared to what happened in the past. That explosion, of course, would have blinded and deafened almost any animals above ground for a wide range. And it blasted hundreds of cubic miles of earth into space. And when that rock came back down, the heat from re-entry heated up the air around the globe above the temperature to start fire. And anything above ground that was organic burst into flame. Animals were cooked, forest fires raged around the globe. That day, the earth burned. A lot of us are familiar with the Richter scale. A magnitude 7 earthquake is 10 times the strength of a magnitude 6. 100 times that of a magnitude 5. It goes by a factor of 10 with each one. That impact caused a magnitude 12 earthquake. 1 million times the size of the earthquakes we read about in the paper every day. And it hit where? Our continent here, North America, in the Caribbean. It hits into water. How many people remember a few years ago the tsunami in Japan? The height of that tsunami, anybody know? Anybody guess? It was 11 feet, a little higher than the lights here. 11 feet. That tsunami at 11 feet caused thousands of deaths, a country reeling, and cars tossed around like toys. At the end of the Cretaceous, that explosion caused a tsunami at least 1,000 feet high. 1,000 feet high, which then went around the globe. Then, after the blast, the earthquake, the inferno, the mega tsunami, after all that, anything that survived faced an even greater peril. All that debris that came down wasn't all big enough to come down. Some of it stayed up there. And that means the sun was gone, blocked out by debris for months, maybe years. Sun was gone and the earth was plunged into a pitch black winter. It snowed in the tropics. And we all know from leaving that piece of plywood in the backyard what happens to the plants. The plants are all dead. They only made it through based on seeds or spores or maybe rootstocks. Imagine what that was like for our animal ancestors back then. The freezing toes and limbs, the gnawing thirst, not knowing even what had happened. Not knowing if the sun would ever come back. Some, against all odds, survived. A lot like them. A lot like the life in the root cellar. They kept breathing. Terrible indeed, and it's not the only mass extinction our ancestors faced. The annual return of spring is a reminder that those hardships end. That unspeakable calamity at the end of the Cretaceous had some benefits. It cleared the evolutionary slate. It opened up ecological niches. It made room for new innovations. Without that Cretaceous extinction, we wouldn't have rhinos or whales, horses or humans. We wouldn't have human culture. No Bhagavad Gita, no Elvis, no space shuttle, no Justin Bieber. That deadly disaster gave us our world. New life doesn't just follow hardship, but those hardships often catalyze new life. Many of those hardships give energy to that pulse of life. As sure as Ziigwung follows baboon and spring follows winter. In fact, that surge of life, if you take the hardships, you can see that it's intertwined with the surge of life, twisting around a lot like the double helix of our DNA. They aren't two enemies, components of a worldview that has some evil intent against us. That asteroid didn't approach Earth thinking, I've got him now. These things just happen. In fact, nature shows us that they're just two sides of the same coin. They're the warp and the weft of evolution. Two dance partners that through the ages have spun out our world. And our world wouldn't exist if either of them were gone. Without life, there would be no death. And without death, there would be no room for new life and new creativity. So, what does this spring equinox, this Ziigwung Gizi God, say to us today? For me, it's a reminder that a harsh winter can give way to the life of spring. That after an asteroid can be a flowering of creativity. That hardship is what catalyzes growth. If it says that to you too, then remember, this spring equinox can help you in your daily life. It can be a reminder. It can be a reminder that to you, the next time your family life might feel like megaton explosions, or the next time you get to work and you open up your email and you're greeted by a 1,000-foot mega tsunami, that's when it can come to mind. It can remind you that it's hardship that spurs the pulse of life. It can remind you that this can be a chance to grow new abilities, to be more than you are today. And that without those harsh winters, there would be no spring. Ziigwung follows baboon, bringing new life. And indeed, without all these hardships, we'd still be pond scum. Blessed be.